Alright everyone, let me get seated here. Sorry about that. Let me know if you can see and hear me alright. It is... had so many technical difficulties before getting started. It's ridiculous because the software always wants to update. I mean, it feels like every time I open the darn thing, it wants to update. And when it updates, it changes all my settings. I have to reset them all back, check them all again. It also didn't help that I forgot to charge the camera, so the camera might actually run out of battery sometime during this live stream. I hope not. Let me check my YouTube to see your guys' chat. New channel. Oh, that's cool. My icon says I'm live. That's a new feature. Alright. So, we'll do that. And where is the chat? Ah, there we are. Cool. Okay, so everybody says they can see and hear me. That's good. Chicken Sandwich says, I'm watching this from Enchanted Forest. Awesome. Oh, man. So, yeah, what a start. Just completely running around like a chicken with its head cut off, just trying to get the software working. I got my other camera batteries charging at the moment, so in case something happens, although I don't know if it'll change what happens to the live stream. Good afternoon, Abram. Yeah, so today we're having Earl Grey tea. I have my Scottish shortbread, and these are McVitie's they're, I forget what kind of, they're like their award-winning like biscuit. I forget what it's called. It's got a specific name, but it's the biscuit that made them like the best biscuit in Britain, you know. So so we have that, and we even have a subject to talk about, which today we're going to talk about the SS United States. So let me get this tea started. Okay, so first thing I have to do is empty this out. It's been such a long time since I've done one of these teas. The reason why it's been on such a hiatus is because summertime. During summer, I don't like to have hot tea because it's, you know, obviously too warm. But it's also, I don't like cold tea, so I don't, you know, I don't drink cold tea. And then on top of that, because of the summer heat, this room gets really, really hot. And even my office, which has my train layout, I would do the tea time in there, but that office gets really, really hot. The only place that has cold air is my living room, where I have my portable air conditioner. And I can't move my portable air conditioner into any one of these rooms because it weighs a ton, but also it's just a pain to set up. You have to fit the window block thing, and it's ridiculous. But yeah, so Melanie McDonald says, hi Alex, please do... Oh, you deleted your comment. Okay. Alright, so we're gonna top this off with some boiling water. Let that pre-warm. And we'll do the same to the teacup. So for those who are new here, which I have a feeling we have a few new people, this tea set is it's authentic bone china, and the whole set came from basically the RMS Queen Mary and the RMS Queen Elizabeth. So this was stuff that was actually used on the two ships while they were out at sea. So yeah, let's top that off with boiling water. And it's already acclimatized. It's actually not that cold today, but it was cool enough that I felt, we could do a tea time today. So I dumped the whole thing out after pre-warming the teapot. That's because it's made of authentic china. If you just pour straight up boiling water in there without stepping up slowly the temperature, you can shock the china and crack it. Oop, I overfilled that. Hey, Ozzy. Yeah, I'm doing Earl Grey tea. The weather is pretty good. It's a partly cloudy day. Well, now it's entirely cloudy. It was partly cloudy. Yeah, nice cool weather. Nothing to complain about. So, yeah, it's overall a good day. And then let's go ahead and put this in. Time is 1:12. So at 1:16, my tea will be ready. Hopefully I don't get distracted or anything. I always get distracted and then I forget to remove that thing. Alright, so... what was I going to say about... But yeah, so that's why the tea time has been, all over the place. I haven't... it was just too hot to do it over summer. And it'll probably be too hot next weekend to do a tea time as well. We'll see. The weather here changes so rapidly. But sometime during September, I'm sure the tea times can come back because, the weather will start cooling down significantly. And so it'll be nice to have warm tea again. So... Cars for you says, do you think the Queen Mary provided a better wartime / more useful than the Normandy? Well, I mean, yeah, because Normandy didn't even really make it to wartime, really. I mean, like, in the sense that she never sailed during wartime. She was stuck in New York, and then... I want to say a year or two, I forget, a year or two after the war started, she caught fire and sank right there. So she was never really used for war at all. So in that sense, yeah, Queen Mary certainly was more useful to the war effort. But if you're asking, like, would Normandy have been useful to the war effort had she not burned? I would have said yeah. Normandy would have been pretty useful. There, she was not much larger than the Queen Mary, really. They were so very close in size and capacity. So, in terms of like volume, they were pretty close. So, being able to house troops and things like that, it would have been possible, And Normandy was pretty fast. I always talk about how Queen Mary won the Blue Riband from Normandy, but really, Queen Mary won it by a hair. Normandy was really fast. So she would have been just as useful as the Queen Mary during wartime. That's if she was used correctly, depending on where she was sent and how she was utilized, But yeah, I think Normandy would have been very useful to the war effort and helped to win a lot of battles simply by transporting a lot of troops to the closest port of the battle, right, okay, so one more minute on the tea. I'm trying to keep an eye on the tea. I don't want to overbrew it or oversteep it. There we go. Yeah. Conrad says, hi Alex, hope you're doing well. Finally made alive. I can hardly wait for SS United States. I have a great biography about her builder. You can hardly wait for SS United States. What do you mean? We are going to talk about the SS United States, folks. I see a lot of people asking me already. We are going to talk about the SS United States here, but not as a history. We're going to talk about basically why I haven't made a video about the SS United States. Okay, so it's time for tea. Kat says, did you see Queen Mary added a new VIP tour for ocean liner enthusiasts? It's a bit pricey, but includes lunch. I haven't seen it. I don't know, was that posted today? Because I haven't been on social media today. Well, aside from YouTube here. But, I didn't see it. You know, it's great that the Queen Mary offers all these tours, but I really wish that they would not focus so heavily on tours. I mean, yes, as a former tour guide myself, not for the Queen Mary, but for Disneyland, but as a former tour guide myself, I understand the importance of tours and, you know, and stuff like that, but it seems like that's all the Queen Mary can offer. You know, it seems like that's all they're really doing. That's the only attraction on the ship, are the tours. And, you know, I've been saying for a long time, you know, they've got to create more attractions other than tours. They've got to allow people to see places, at least a few places, without having to take a tour. You know, like, because what's going to happen is, I mean, what's already happening is you get people that come to the ship, they're like, oh, I never heard of the Queen Mary before, and now there's all this advertising, now there's YouTube videos all about it, you know, and they go to the Queen Mary, and they get there, and, like, all the doors are locked. Everything is shut down. The only way you can see stuff, really, besides the main hall and the observation bar, is to get a tour. And, you know, financially speaking, if you're like an accountant or something, or you're a business manager, you know, the first thing that comes to your mind is, oh, that's a good idea. Close everything down and force people to take a tour because that'll earn us money. But if you look at things from a attractions planning standpoint, if you don't give people enough to see without having to pay a premium, because you're already paying for the admission, right? The tour is on top of the admission. So if you're forcing people to pay a premium for stuff, then they're going to start seeing what they're paying as lower value. You know, because if you can't put that value into the admission, why should they pay extra to get more value? See, that's the thing that I think a lot of the management over the years, not just this management, but over the years, they don't quite see it that way. And so, you know, to them it's like, oh, well, we'll open more rooms of the ship for people to see, but only for tours. And it's like, no, people are going to get tired. They're going to get there, they're going to be like, I paid $45, you know, for each of us to get on this ship, and the only thing we can do is walk around the main hall and walk down the promenade, buy coffee, buy food at an overpriced restaurant, and then, you know, and then now we have to pay a premium for tours, you know. And thankfully, I think sometimes the admission comes with a tour. I don't know. You know, I've heard from people that some people say, oh, it doesn't come with a tour, and some people says it does. So I have a feeling that they change it up throughout the week. But you know, it's great to take one tour, but really to understand the Queen Mary, you have to take all of them. And I know that there's like a big variety, but again, if your only attraction is tours, that will be detrimental in the long run. They have to come up with something new. Okay, so I gotta catch up with these comments here. Hello, Jose. Pierre says, I'll be doing my first transatlantic crossing on the Queen Mary 2 in November. A childhood dream come true. Oh, that sounds amazing. I really want to do that too. I'm trying to save up for that. And actually, we'll talk about that today too, because there is kind of a step towards that's happening right now. Let's see. 1.5. I'll just put a little bit more than a half. There we go. I'm just reading people's comments. Jose says, I have a doubt regarding the fourth class on ocean liners, which is mentioned in various written sources and on the internet, but it's not very clear to me how it worked and how it differs from third class. Fourth class really existed just prior to the turn of the 20th century, like 1900, 1905 is basically when fourth class ended. But there were four classes. If you think about it this way, first and second classes, you got your own staterooms. Third class, you got little cabins that were for you and the people around you. But fourth class, they had to stay in large dormitories, which meant that there were huge rooms with tons of bunk beds, and that was where you slept. And then in terms of like what your amenities were, first and second classes would be able to roam the top decks of the ship and get air and fresh air and walk around and see the daylight. Third class, they might get like a little area towards the stern of the ship where they could just kind of stand around and get air. Fourth class, you either were very limited to the amount of time you could spend up on deck and getting fresh air, or you didn't get fresh air at all. You were down below decks at all times. And fourth class was really made for immigrants. It was really made for the really, really poor immigrants that were moving from one country to another. But over time, the reason for people traveling would change. The amount of money they carried with them would change. And so with the changing times, they got rid of fourth class, and third class became a combination of people who were traveling for tourism or to meet family, and a combination of people who were traveling to immigrate to another country. Third class, it became like a curmudgeon-y of people. And then to make it even more confusing, after World War I, and even more after World War II, third class wasn't so much immigrants as it was people just traveling, and they needed to get across the ocean to get to their destination. Just people traveling for leisure, for business, that kind of thing. So mostly after the World War II, third class was just regular people traveling. And so, companies like Cunard had to step up their game, because Queen Mary was designed for a third class that was very traditional. It was like made for working people who were immigrating to another country, and they had very limited amenities on the ship. And then after World War II, when it was all people just traveling, they weren't going to settle for a traditional third class setting. So Cunard had to step up their game. And what they did with the Queen Mary, particularly around the early 1960s, was they gave over a lot of first class spaces to the third class. So I know after World War I, sometime in like the early 1950s, they allowed time frames throughout the day where third class passengers would have access to the first class swimming pool on Queen Mary. So they got to use that. And then after their allotted time was done, then the first class would have their allotted time at the first class swimming pool. And then in the 1960s, they took a whole column of first class spaces on the Queen Mary. It was the forwardmost area of the superstructure, where there were a couple of cabins, basically the area where B340 is and stuff like that. That was originally all first class. And then there were like first class spaces, such as the observation bar, for instance. And the observation bar, after 1964, became a third class space to give the third class more amenities, because again, they weren't just these poor immigrants anymore. They were just people traveling for leisure. so they expected more out of their trip. So over the course of the first half of the 20th century, ocean liners went through some crazy changes in order to accommodate the ever-changing needs of their passengers. So, okay, let me just put some milk in there, stir that around, and then we'll talk about the SS United States. Melanie says, excited to see you live again. Wondering if you're planning on doing any more spooky Disney stories for the upcoming fall season. No, because as I mentioned in my videos about the ghost experiences I had at Disney, they were limited. I mean, I don't work there anymore. I mean, there were only so many stories that I have of things that happened to me and people I know. I think some people think I made all that up, so they think maybe that I will just make another video every year and talk more and more about it. But I really didn't make it up. That was stuff that happened. Whether you believe it or not, that was something that I experienced and my coworkers experienced, and there was only so much of it, So I can't add any more to the stories. I can't make more videos because that's it. That's all there was, So, and I think it was the same thing, too. Like, a couple years back, I lived in a haunted apartment. And so last year, during the Halloween season, I decided to talk about the apartment I lived in and why it was haunted. And so, yeah, so that will show up. Because usually every season, I put up a playlist on the very top of my YouTube page that has videos that pertain to that season. And so for Halloween, I'll put up like a Halloween playlist of just all that stuff. But yeah, that was it for Disneyland. Like, I only had so many experiences, and I put them all down in those 3 videos. So yeah, that's it. That's all there is to it. But yeah, so Russell Cooper says too much waffling. I don't know what that means. Nathan says, how's savings going towards the UK trip? Maybe I'll answer that now, because I was going to answer that later, but, you're asking it now. And then we'll talk about SS United States. Okay, sorry, it's just there's a lot of topics to get to, and it's been a long time since I've done these live streams. So, the UK trip. So, I have money saved up for it. Unfortunately, it's still not enough. And the trip, originally, when I first planned it, was supposed to cost like $8,000, and then now it's $9,000 to do this thing. And so, yeah. And the thing is that what's happening on YouTube, and this isn't a complaint, I've just accepted it, okay? But what's happening on YouTube, and it's happening to a lot of my friends who are also YouTubers, is that YouTube is not paying out what they used to pay us. They're, for every ad we would get so much money, and that amount has decreased significantly. And our viewership has decreased significantly. A lot of us have kind of figured out that YouTube really, every time we post a video, they don't promote the videos as much as they used to. So we're not getting the viewership we used to have. And that's becoming a huge problem because this is what we do for a living, And so, yeah, that's kind of the issue facing us right now. And so my ability to save for the UK has come down to a tiny little trickle, and it would be years and years from now before I can even take the trip, and I don't want to wait years and years. I may not have that much time left on YouTube anyway. So what I'm doing is, instead of taking that huge bite out of a budget to go to the UK first, I'm going to try to build up my viewership by going to, places first to get to that spot. Hopefully, I only have to do one trip to save up for the UK trip. But what I'm doing right now, and it's going to happen, I can't say exactly when, but essentially within the next month, well, not within, but after a month from now, approximately, I will be going to New Orleans to film history there. So I'm going there with my friend Chris, and my father will join me so that way he can help drive us around and stuff like that. And they're paying for their own sides of the trip. But yeah, so we will be filming a lot of historical places there. I mean, a lot. I mean, the camera will almost never be turned off. We'll be filming everything. And including the plantations, the historic houses and buildings and districts in the French Quarter, and the Garden District as well. Just a bunch of stuff, a bunch of history stuff. I've already laid out a whole plan for what we're going to film and where we're going to go and what we're going to do. And so all of that will be done so that way I can produce content about that and get people, to watch those videos, earn the money very quickly, hopefully, if everything turns out well. And then I can use that money to go to the UK. Because at this point, the amount I'm able to save up every month is like maybe $50 if I'm lucky, after everything, after paying my bills and all of that. And, I'm still like $4,000, no, more than that. I'm $5,000 away from paying for the UK trip. So $50 a month to get to $5,000 more is like a long time. So yeah, I'm really hoping that I can make a ton of content based off of my trip to New Orleans, and then use that money that comes in to pay for the UK trip, and that's how I plan to get there. So yeah. Sorry, I'm just reading comments, but yeah. Alright, so to get to the main topic, is the SS United States and why I haven't made a video about the SS United States. I answered this in an email to somebody the other day, and that's what got me thinking I should talk about it. Is essentially, I don't have any faith in the SS United States. I don't believe the SS United States can be saved, because it's basically already gone. I mean, it has none of its historic interiors left. It has nothing left. It's got its engines, and that's it. There's not even any plumbing. You can't use any plumbing or wiring on board to build a hotel because all of it's gone. All the bulkheads that separated all of the staterooms, gone. It's just a big, giant, empty shell. And like I was telling somebody on email, it might seem like, well, that makes a perfect blank slate for any business to come in and build what they want, but it actually isn't, because if you consider a business like a wooden peg, and you consider the ship to be the hole that the peg goes in, the ship has a very specifically shaped hole, and the business will then have to adapt the peg to match the specific shape of the hole. And that's kind of the issue here, is that you can't just build what you want on the ship. You have to go through all these extra hoops to make sure that everything fits right. Like, for instance, the ship has shear. So it's not completely flat every level. It has shear. It bows up at the ends. That means that every doorway that faces into the center line of the ship will have a unique slant to it. No door will be the same. So imagine the expense of having to custom shape every door that goes onto the ship. I mean, it's also got camber as well. So even the doors that face forward or aft will also have a unique shape to them. So, so trying to build a business like that, and paying for all this custom installation work to fit that, you know. The plumbing would be interesting to install because, you know, the inside of the ship, if you're looking, you know, this is starboard, this is port, the inside of the ship bows up towards the center because it's got camber. And imagine trying to install plumbing in that. You know, you have a toilet up here and a toilet down here, and, you know, you're trying to get it to, you know, all go the same place. They had a similar problem with the Queen Mary when they were converting her into a hotel because they had to replace a lot of wiring and plumbing and all that kind of stuff. And you know, they were able to reuse the same pathways that were previously used for plumbing, but the SS United States doesn't even have those pathways anymore. It's all gone. So they would have to like relearn how to install plumbing on an ocean liner with shear and camber. It's not hard, but it's, well, no, it is hard actually. Yeah. So, you know, but to kind of get to why I have that perspective is when I first made my first video about saving the Queen Mary. Let me take another sip of this. Kier, yes, I'll talk about my travel plans right after this. Okay, so so why I have that opinion about SS United States. When I first made my first Queen Mary video in 2021 called Let's Save the Queen Mary, first of all, I had to do a year's worth of research because if those of you who've been on my channel for a while, you know that I get a lot of viewers who really pick apart my videos. They go, you know, why do you think that this is a fact and blah, 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 and you don't know anything about the ship and blah, blah, blah. People really pick apart everything I say. They just don't like me. I don't know. But they pick apart everything I say. And so I have to have facts that back things up. And so I knew that if I was going to make a video about the Queen Mary, I needed to know a lot. And you can't just do that over the weekend. The ship is huge. It's like learning about every corner of a palace. I mean, it would take forever, you know. And it did. It took a whole year's worth of research to really understand the ship very well and be able to say, ah, yes, I know all of these resources. So whatever I say, I can back it up with a resource that told me what that is, you know. And so with SS United States, I haven't done that yet. It would take me close to a year to do the same kind of research, you know, and I can't produce a video in, you know, a close enough amount of time to save the ship. But the other thing too is that you know, when I made that video about the Queen Mary, there were some well-known facts about the Queen Mary. She has a lot of her original interior still there. Yes, they've been modified quite a bit over the years, but the interiors are still there. She has a lot of her original look still there. So even though certain things have been modified, a lot of times it's been modified to look just as it did in the 1930s. So she's got a lot of that going on. Queen Mary still has all of her, all of her first and second class staterooms, which are now hotel rooms, which already had plumbing and electrical during the pandemic. They already had all of that kind of stuff. The ship was fully furnished. The restaurants all had fully laid out kitchens and everything. You know, and the ship had power. The ship was sitting, the ship is sitting on a dock that she doesn't have to pay for. The Queen Mary basically owns the land that she's docked next to. So she doesn't have to pay port fees, she doesn't have to pay any of that. She's also considered a building. So she wouldn't have to pay port fees anyway because she's a floating building. So she's no longer considered a ship. So the SS United States doesn't have any of that. I mean, first of all, just the situation of the Queen Mary being docked next to land that she owns and not being considered a ship, those are really rare circumstances. No ship has that, really. I mean, all museum ships pay some kind of docking fee to be moored where they're at. Queen Mary doesn't. To my knowledge, the Queen Mary is the only large, you know, passenger ship that has to doesn't have to pay docking fees. So it's a really unique circumstance, as well as the fact that if something happens on the Queen Mary, let's say one of the rooms has major water damage because a pipe burst, the city of Long Beach can go, you know what, let's quickly allocate $1 million in Tideland funds to spend on the ship. And the reason why they can do that, the ship is no longer considered a ship. She's considered a building. She's located along the waterfront of Long Beach, which is part of what the Tidelands Fund covers. The Tidelands Fund is a fund made up of money from all of the oil fracking operations across the coastline of California, and Long Beach contributes to that because they do a lot of oil fracking. And in fact, they probably do more oil fracking than any of the other operations. And so the Tidelands Fund is designed for to spend money on revitalizing coastal areas and scenic ways. So if there's like a permanent beach bathroom along the beach that that needs restoration, you know, supposedly, I mean, unless it falls under a particular city's control, they can use Tideland funds to repair it, especially if it's like, you know, like a state natural park or something like that. So the Queen Mary falls under that because she is along the coastline. She is part of the Tidelands thing, and so they can use non-public money, just money created from oil fracking, to pay for repairs on the ship. That's really unique as well. There's no ship I know that is paid for by, you know, by something like that. It's always usually public money, like taxes, or by private operation. So, so the Queen Mary just has these really unique circumstances that help the ship out. So I knew when I made that first video, the Queen Mary could be saved. And there was a pathway I could see for how to make the ship profitable. That's what that first video was about. I mean, the first video, half of it was about the Queen Mary's history and talking about why the ship is important. But then the other half of the video is talking about how to make the ship profitable. And so I could see ways to make the ship profitable because I mean, basically you just open the doors and you can start earning money instantly. So there was a way to add to that and make it better, to plus it, as Walt Disney would say. But SS United States doesn't have any of those things going for it. None. It doesn't even have anything on the interiors that has been salvaged. Like, I mean, they're in museums all over the world. There's stuff in museums, but there's nothing on the ship that the ship owns that would make people want to look at it and see it. It's an empty shell, and so and a lot of it is completely rusting away. There's whole sections of railing up on deck that have just fallen off. I wouldn't doubt if there's sections of the deck itself that might collapse. You know, it would. I mean, let's have faith that that's not true, but I don't see the SS United States having those same kinds of privileges, those same kinds of sheer dumb luck that happened with the Queen Mary, really. And so, without any of that stuff that could save the ship, I don't see a pathway forward for the SS United States. You know, I may not be a fan of the SS United States the way I am with Queen Mary, but I don't wish anything bad on the ship. You know, the more historic ocean liners that are saved, the better, I think, you know, because even if I'm not interested in the SS United States, I know there's a ton of people that are, and they would love to see the ship be successful and be a cool hotel and museum there on the East Coast somewhere. But I just don't have faith that it can happen. I just don't see how, you know, and I'm not an expert in business management, but when I went to college, I did take a few classes in business management. And as a former business owner myself, I just don't see how you can make that ship happen. I just really don't, you know. RXR Realty helped to create a business plan for the ship for any business that wants to come in and fund it. They can fund it and that business plan can be made, but nobody's going to want to fund it, at least not in my opinion. Nobody's going to want to fund it. because you could build a brick and mortar place much cheaper than you can restoring the SS United States. And the SS United States, being a ship, will need constant upkeep and maintenance. You know, with Queen Mary, she earns her annual upkeep and maintenance by the cruises that come into the terminal next to her, because everybody, I think it's like a 5% fee is charged. Is it 5 or is it 2%? I forget. It's a 2 or 5% fee is charged for every person that books a cruise at Long Beach Cruise Terminal. And that money at the end of the year adds up to like $3 million. On a good year, it'll add up to $5 million. And that money, that $3 to $5 million, goes towards the Queen Mary's annual maintenance costs. So that's another thing. The Queen Mary doesn't have to pay for her regular annual maintenance, just the extra stuff that's on top of it, like projects and things like that. So I don't see anything like that happening for the SS United States either. So, hey, how you doing, K4RNA? So yeah, so that is why I don't have a video on the SS United States. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's possible. I don't see a way for the ship to succeed as much as I would like for the ship to succeed. I just don't have faith in it. But the other thing too is, here's the funny thing. A couple months ago, I was contacted by someone who said they were from the SS United States Conservancy, the people who own the SS United States currently. And that they wanted me to make a video about the SS United States to help save it. And I had to really think about it, and I'm like, I don't know. But I was like, you know, if they can help me out to make this video, then I can make it for all the people that really want me to do something, you know. And so I told them, I said, look, it'll take me like a year to get all of the history and all of the engineering and understand everything about the ship. That's if all that information is readily available online. So I said, if you want to help me make this video fast, then you guys, because they're the Conservancy, they know all the information about the ship, they have it all. So I said, if you guys could create a document for me that lists all of the history and all the engineering facts that you want me to talk about on the ship, and it has accurate dates, it has accurate information, and even like, you know, maybe 1 or 2 sources where I can learn more. You know, I'm like, if you can provide me that, and maybe some photographs and video of the ship, because I don't have any images of the ship. There's some online, but not enough. I said, so if you can provide all that for me, I will make a video about the SS United States. And I didn't get a response back. And I waited a couple of weeks, and then I sent like a follow-up email saying, hey, did you get my email? And no response back. And it's been months since then. Months. So even the Conservancy is really not interested in me making a video for them. So I tried. I'll just put it that way. Even though I don't believe that the SS United States will succeed, I did try. But it's too late now, because they have only two or three more weeks left before they're basically, you know, they have to move the ship or whatever they have to do with it, and it'll take me at least a month to make a video, even if I had all the information sitting right in front of me. So it'll be too late. But yeah, so that's that subject, and I'll go ahead and start answering questions in the comments, because there's been quite a few. Someone asked me earlier what my travel plans are exactly. So for my New Orleans trip, which I'm doing first, because again, I'm doing that first so that way I can save up money from the content I make on that to go to the UK. I can't say exactly when I'm going to New Orleans. The reason why is because I have a lot of death threats that come in to me. Threats of violence and death threats itself. And again, it's just disgruntled people that don't like me for various reasons. And so I don't want to let them know where I'm going to be and when I'm going to be there. But what I do feel comfortable saying is that I have already booked everything for this New Orleans trip, so it's already happening, and so it's already solid. It's gonna happen, and a lot of the stuff I booked is non-refundable either, so I better go. Hopefully there isn't like a big storm or something that happens. And the first day, so I'm remembering this off the top of my head, the first day we will be doing a tour of the French Quarter. Since we're going with a big group, there's going to be a big group of us, including my friend Shiloh and his mom, and then my friend Chris, and my dad, and me. We are paying for a private tour guide, which actually doesn't come out to much more than paying for a regular tour guide when all of it's added up. But we're paying for a private tour guide to take us around the French Quarter so we can ask our questions. We can interact with them one-on-one and get better answers and maybe even information that they don't tell in their regular tours. We'll be able to get them to take us to specific places in the French Quarter as opposed to just their predetermined route and stuff like that. So we should be able to do get a lot of information, special information, and a lot of attention by hiring a private tour guide. So we do that in the morning. Then in the evening of the first day, we will be doing what do you call it? We'll be sailing along the Mississippi on the steamboat Natchez. The reason why is the steamboat Natchez is the only authentic steamboat that's operating along that stretch of the Mississippi, in New Orleans particularly. It's the only authentic steamboat. It actually runs on real steam, and its paddle wheel is what drives the forward and reverse momentum, all of that. And so because it's a real steamboat and it has a long lineage of steamboats called Natchez that goes back to the 1800s, it's got a lot of history to it. And so I want to make a video about that. Actually, 2 videos. I want to make a video showing what our trip on it was like, and then I want to make a video that talks about, it would be like a documentary, talks about the history of the Natchez and all that, and steamboats in general. So that's the first afternoon. Then we have lunch. Then I think we will be visiting. What is it? I think we'll be touring the Ursuline Convent. So I already made a video about the Ursuline Convent. It's about the convent that is supposedly, they housed vampires on the upper floor. But the building has a lot of history to it, and I suspect there's even more stuff that I don't know about it that I want to learn about, and I want to get footage of it so I can remake a Ursuline Convent video, much more detailed and much more interesting than the previous one was. And then we'll be walking around, I think, Royal Street and stuff. My friend Shiloh really wants to check out the antique shops and things. And when we go into each shop, you see every building in New Orleans, or particularly the French Quarter, it's old. They date back to at least the mid-1800s, sometimes even the late 1800s. So when we go into every building, I'm going to see if they have a little story about that building. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they can say, oh yeah, that's, this building was built by so-and-so at this time, and this is what happened to them. And so if I can find some stories about that, I'll film the building, and then I will make a video about it. The hotel we're staying at, I actually honestly just booked. So the hotel we're staying at is in the French Quarter. I wanted to stay in an old building. I did not want to stay in a new, fancy hotel. I wanted to stay in a really old building in the French Quarter, and see what it's like to live for a week in this old 1800s, 1700s building. And what I found out was that the hotel we're staying at actually does have a story, and I found this out after I booked the hotel. But The hotel owns uh, the Marie Laveau house. If you don't know who Marie Laveau is, Marie Laveau was the famous voodoo queen of New Orleans. She was both equally loved and feared, supposedly. And, yeah, and supposedly her house is very, very haunted. And I didn't know when I booked the hotel that the hotel owns that house. And when I went to look and see what building our hotel room was in, everything about the photographs of the interiors of our hotel room matched the features of the building. So I'm pretty sure I'll be staying in the Marie Laveau house, or I think it's confusing because it's called Marie Laveau Apartments. So yeah, I don't know. It could be her apartment. You know, I know Marie Laveau, she owned more than one house, but she stayed in one of them. So it'll be interesting. You know, and then we have plans to see a bunch of other stuff, you know, over the days. Like, we're going to see the World War II museum, so I'm going to try to film a vlog about that. I'm going to film vlogs about our experiences in New Orleans, walking around, eating the food, trying out different things, and then documentaries about the different buildings in New Orleans, like the Lalaurie Mansion, I'm hoping that the other mansion in the French Quarter, what's it called? Well, anyway, there's a building that's the second oldest building in the French Quarter, and it's designed in an actual French colonial style. And right now it's being renovated, and so I'm like really hoping that when we get there, it's at least mostly complete and we can see it, but I have my doubts. But there's also the Louisiana Courthouse, which is there. There's the St. Louis Cathedral, the Presbytere, the Cabildo. Gosh, there's like so much that, you know, there's the Pontalba buildings. There's all kinds of like little museums. Like there's a Museum of Voodoo. Oh, there's also what do you call it? Congo Square, which is where the slaves used to dance and chant and stuff like that on Sundays, on their days off. And then there's a hotel that still has an original wall from the hotel that came before it, and that wall signifies the place where there was a massive slave exchange. So it was a building that sold slaves and stuff. So I can talk about that. And then there's also the plantations. We plan to go to visit 2 of the plantations. Oak Alley, because everybody in our group really wants to see it, but I really want to see this other plantation called Whitney Plantation, which has more of a focus on the slaves and their lives on that plantation. And hopefully I can video all of it, make a video about it. So there's going to be a lot of stuff. Oh my gosh. We have every day filled out. We have like a whole itinerary, and every single day everything is filled out for everything down to the hour. We planned everything out down to the hour. So there's going to be a lot. Lots of tours, lots of filming, lots of everything. And, you know, so I'm not only filming to get B-roll for the documentaries, but I'm also filming a vlog. So I've got to keep the camera rolling so I can show people what we're experiencing and what we like and what we don't like and all that kind of stuff. And then there's like walkthrough videos. So if I go somewhere that deserves a nice calm walkthrough where people can just enjoy the video and see this place, then I'll be doing that too. So pretty much the cameras will always be rolling. And then in the evenings, we don't plan to stay out in the evenings because it's not as safe in the evenings as it is during the daytime. So pretty much every single evening we're going to call it an early night and go to our hotel room and, you know, just wait till the daylight comes back. So none of us drink, none of us party or anything like that, so we have no need to go to a bar or anything like that. I know some people be like, oh, well, if you're not doing anything at night, you might as well go, you know, to a bar or something, but none of us drink, you know, we just don't, like, So, yeah, we have nothing to do, no nightlife to speak of for us. um, Sheridan says, "Hope you have fun in New Orleans. Are you flying to the city?" Yes. So we have booked plane tickets. Unfortunately, see, I live just outside of Portland, Oregon, and unfortunately, there are no direct flights to New Orleans. I checked. I called the various airlines. Oh my gosh, it took a whole day because we were calling all these airlines looking for the best deal for the best fastest trip there. And ironically, the cheapest and fastest deal we could get was a plane flight that takes us from Portland, Oregon to LAX and then to New Orleans. And the funny thing is for the first time in 4 years, almost 5 at that point, the first time in almost 5 years, I will be incredibly close to the Queen Mary. In fact, I have a layover there in LAX. It's a 3-hour, 45-minute layover. And I considered making a quick run to the Queen Mary to do some filming, to see the ship. I mean, this is a ship I haven't seen since before the pandemic. January 2020 was the last time I saw it. And last time I saw it, there was no telling if the ship was going to close. And when it closed, there was no telling if it was ever going to open. So this is a ship I've been dying to see for 4 years, almost 5 at this point. And so I'll be so close. I'll be there for 3 hours and 45 minutes, but it's not enough time to get out of LAX, go to the Queen Mary, and come back. There's no time. Even if we manage to do it, with all the traffic and all that stuff, even if we manage to do it, we'd only have enough time to be on the ship for maybe 5 minutes. So it doesn't compute. So I am going to be pretty disappointed about that because I have been wanting to go back to see the Queen Mary, but it's not going to happen. So anyway, but yeah, we have a layover in LAX and then we go to New Orleans from there, and we arrive in New Orleans the late afternoon. Technically our first day is late afternoon, but we're not doing anything like no museums or anything because we're going to be there so late in the afternoon, and then other people in our group will be arriving like an hour after we arrive. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to wait for them to arrive. We're going to get settled into our hotel room, and then we're all going to go out to dinner. I might film like parts of a vlog for to kind of document our first day on the trip. But other than that, we're just going out to eat, and then we're going to go back to our hotel rooms, sleep off the jet lag, and then wake up the next morning and start our incredibly busy trip all around New Orleans. And so we'll have a car rented to go certain places for just one of the days we're going to be there. I really looked at renting a car for the whole amount of time we're there. We're going to be there for 5 or 6 days. It depends on how you count it. But I looked at renting a car for that amount of time, and it is exorbitantly expensive. We could only afford renting a car for a day. So whatever we can get to with a car for that day is what we'll do. But otherwise, we're going to be left to just our legs. We have to walk places. So when we go to the World War II Museum, we're going to walk from our hotel in the French Quarter all the way to the World War II Museum, which is a mile. It's not far, but it's the kind of distance that most people won't normally walk. But yeah, so we're going to be doing a lot of stuff as cheap as we can because none of us have that much money. But that's the interesting thing, is that we can go to New Orleans for a week, and it's still cheaper than going to Southern California for a week. It's crazy. So, alright, so, hey Sarah. Tyler Walker says, good day. If they raise the Bayesian, do you think they could or would rebuild it? I don't know what that is, unfortunately. Wild Smiley says, those people who are disgruntled, they're unhinged and need help. They are. I try to be as, like, what do you call it, rational with people as I can, you know, like, sometimes I can talk to someone who's disgruntled and I can say, like, okay, well, you know, what is it that you don't like and how can I fix it, you know? And I think with a few people over the years, I've been able to do that, but the majority of the disgruntled people, they're mad at me for reasons I can't control. They're like, oh, you're making money on YouTube off of these ships. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I spend a ton of money to make the videos. I'd like to earn that money back so I don't create a deficit, you know, like in my expense. I don't earn a lot of money. I'm not rich. I don't live in a big giant rich house and stuff like that like the big name YouTubers do. YouTube pays me pennies for every video I make. It's like I have to make a lot of videos to make it happen. So it's like, yeah, you know, I'm spending a ton of money. Like I have all these subscriptions to editing softwares, music softwares, and like I got photo editors. Oh my gosh, do I have photo editors? I have AI photo editors. I have regular photo editors. I have video upscaling softwares. I have video editing softwares. I have like ridiculous. I have the music software that I just subscribed to because the video I put out last weekend, Queen Mary, the Unbeatable Survivor, which was reposted yesterday, by the way. I had to take it down for the week because I got all these copyright issues with the music, even though the music I was using was supposed to be copyright free. And it turned out that was a lie. So I had to take the video down, and throughout the week I signed up for a music subscription service, which took, you know, paying for that, and then I put all the music on that and then re-uploaded it yesterday to, so I posted it yesterday to YouTube, you know, and so, like, I mean, it's getting to the point where I'm having so much trouble paying for all these things to make these videos that my friend Chris had to pay for that music subscription for me. So, you know, shout out to Chris, because I couldn't have afforded that on my own. It was well over $100, and I didn't have that money sitting around in my bank account. You know, so yeah, I do make money off of YouTube. But what I don't do is I don't sell you products that are made by other people. I might eventually sell you products that are made by me, but, you know, I don't sit here going, oh, try this new body wash by Squash. What's it called? Mr. Squash? Squatch. Dr. Squatch. You know, like, I don't do stuff like that, you know, like, I don't sit here telling you to sign up for a VPN that I never use, you know, like, because I don't believe in that stuff for me. I believe that if I'm going to sell you a product, it's going to be something I personally use. And so far, I've gotten no offers from any company which I use their software or anything like that. Nothing. And I do everything myself too, so it's like, you know, there's no product for me that I can sell you, and it doesn't feel right to sell you a product like this is like the Truman Show or something, you know, like, try this amazing cocoa. It's like, I can't do that, you know. I feel like I watch these videos and all of a sudden someone breaks into a commercial, like in the middle of it, like, oh, but you know what isn't great is having a terrible VPN. It's like, okay. You know, there's this one YouTuber, and I've probably said this a few times already, but he said for years, he's like, I don't use a VPN. And he said all these reasons why. I forget his reasons, but he gave all these reasons why he never uses a VPN. And he says, that's why I do not like do promotions for a VPN is because I don't use one. And then one day he does a commercial on his video for a VPN. And I'm like, I know he doesn't use that because he said it many times over the years that he does not use a VPN and he never would. So here he is selling a VPN to people. So that's what I mean by it doesn't feel genuine. It feels very disingenuous. It feels very, at least in my opinion, wrong. So that's why I don't do that. So yeah, I make ad revenue off of YouTube, but I do not personally promote products on this channel because it just doesn't, unless it's something that I actually use, it just doesn't feel right, you know? Yeah, so, oh yes, K4RNA, we definitely are going to Jackson Square in New Orleans. Kat says, talking about the Queen Mary and restorations, her plates below the windows are on promenade deck have been eaten away by rust and have holes in them. Hope they have plans to fix it. They do have plans. Problem is they don't have the funding for those plans. So they know about it, they've documented it, they know how to fix it. But the problem is that they don't have the money for those plans. Supposedly the Queen Mary should be getting a new round of millions of dollars coming in because there was an infrastructure budget given to LA County since 2028 will be the next Summer Olympics, which, yeah, so next Summer Olympics are 2028, and LA County is hosting the Olympics, and Long Beach is one of the places where a lot of the water type Olympic sports will be held, and so Long Beach was given like hundreds of millions of dollars as part of the budget to, like, you know, upgrade the city to handle this kind of thing and to make it look pretty and presentable for the Olympics. And so I know that they are planning to give the Queen Mary something like $12 million for whatever is most necessary. And so I think with that money, they might use that to do major fixes to the promenade side shell plates, as well as restore the davits and put fake lifeboats up, like the replica lightweight lifeboats will probably go up on the davits after that, because they want the ship to look presentable for the Olympics. They want it to be good, and then they're probably going to do upgrades to the interiors with that money, because if they give the ship like $12 million, I think $5 million could probably be spent on the side shell restoration project. And I mean, that's just my guess. It could be $5 to $7 million to do that. And then the other $5 million could be spent on various other upgrades to the carpets, to the, you know, electrical, plumbing, HVAC. They still have a lot of HVAC they need to repair because they got a lot of the air conditioners repaired over the pandemic, so that way it was ready for opening. But there's still a lot more air conditioners that need repair because a lot of staterooms on the ship don't even have working air conditioning. So it can be hot during summer. So I think they'll be using money like that. So I think it'll happen. Dino, hey there from Nashville, Tennessee. Hello there, Dino. Jeffrey says, do you think you'll do any live streams from New Orleans? That's a good question, because I want to. I really, really, really want to. But I'm worried about doing it, because, well, see, this is why I'm kind of back and forth on it. Remember how I said I don't want to reveal where I am when I'm there, because I'm worried that one of the disgruntled people that hate me, that really want to punch me in the face or something, might show up and actually do that, right? But at the same time, if I do a surprise live stream, what are the odds that someone who hates me happens to be in the area? You know? So what's the harm in it, you know? So I'm still on the fence about it, but I really do want to do live streams in New Orleans. I really do. Because I'd love to share the moment with you guys. I mean, you know, I'm a very social person, so I like to talk to people and, you know, and of course it would be fun for you guys because you get to see what I'm seeing while I'm seeing it for the first time, which is like the ultimate reaction video. So I think I will. I'm leaning towards yes. I'll do live streams when I'm in New Orleans. It'll be kind of surprise live streams. And I'll probably do them in places where I know I can make a quick escape if I have to. In essence, like, I won't do a live stream from the Steamboat Nachos, because if someone who hates me happens to be in the area, they'll just wait at the dock for me to show up and stab me with a shank or something. But if I'm walking around or something, then I can do a live stream. What was I going to say about live streaming? Well, yeah, anyway. So, yeah, I'm leaning towards yes on live streaming. Okay, and Pierre says, very interesting. What about your UK travel plans? So, for the UK, our plan is to travel on the Queen Mary 2. See, Chris... Okay. We have two different plans, because Chris and I are kind of going back and forth on what we want to do. And I have to remember that I'm not the only one that's going to be doing the UK travel trip. Chris will be next to me, and he's also doing stuff for his channel, and he's going to want to do certain things as well. So I have to remember that I'm not the only one on that trip. But essentially, what I want to do is get to the UK using the Queen Mary 2. So travel from New York to Southampton. And then what we're going to do is, what we are going to do for sure on both plans is spend about 2 weeks in the UK and France. So we have a list of cities lined up for where we're gonna go, what we're gonna film. And so we got, Southampton, we got London, Edinburgh, and let's see, Southampton, London, Edinburgh, and what's that other city? Oh my goodness. It's the city that has the SS Great. No, yeah, the SS Great Britain. So the name is escaping me. Oh my gosh! And it's got the big bridge, that's the big iron bridge that was built by Isambard Kingdom Brunel. What is that city called? Oh my goodness. Anyway, I have it in my plans, but yeah, there's a city that has the SS Great Britain, and it's got that big bridge and stuff like that. So we have plans to go there and to film all that stuff and talk about the history there. And then we're going to France for a couple of days. And for his channel, he wants to go visit Disneyland Paris, because he does a lot of Disney theme park videos. So he wants to film Disneyland Paris. And I've never been to Disneyland Paris, and I used to be a Disney cast member working at Disneyland, so I am curious to see what Disneyland Paris is like. So we're going to be spending a couple of days in Disneyland Paris, so he can film everything. And but we will be spending several days in the city of Paris to film everything, and and so I can make documentaries and stuff about Paris. And then we're going to go to Mont Saint-Michel, which is a really cool little town built on a giant rock in the middle of the beach. And it's in the Normandy region of France. Beautiful place. I've always wanted to go there. Always wanted to go to Mont Saint-Michel. So I told Chris, I'm like, I don't want to miss this. And I'm pretty sure I can make a video about it or something. So I really want to go to Mont Saint-Michel. So we're going to go to Mont Saint-Michel, and then our plan is to take a ferry back across the channel and get to Portsmouth, England. And at Portsmouth, they have a ton of historic, like, vessels and ships and military stuff. And, like, the HMS Victory, I want to say, is there. So I want to film that and stuff like that. So there's a ton of stuff there. And then from there we go back to Southampton and catch the Queen Mary 2 back to the U.S. And while we're in New York, we're going to be doing some things there. Like, you know, I want to see the 9/11 memorial because, you know, I remember, you know, watching 9/11, you know, happening. You know, it's just, yeah. So I want to see the memorial. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much the plans for the UK trip. And I've got a whole itinerary set up. The only thing is that Chris doesn't want to take the Queen Mary both ways. He only wants to take the Queen Mary coming back. Because he wants to see the Statue of Liberty in the distance and get video of that and stuff like that. But he doesn't want to take the Queen Mary 2 there because he thinks it'll be very expensive. But I'm trying to convince him that if we take a plane, right? If we take a plane, well, at least for me it will. If I take a plane going from, like, PDX or something all the way to London, because I know they do have a London flight, that will cost me just as much, basically, as going on the Queen Mary 2. Because if you include taxes and fees and all of that, it'll end up costing the same amount. So I'm trying to convince him to, let's just take the Queen Mary 2 both ways. I know I still have to take a plane to get to the Queen Mary 2, but what I'm thinking, and here's my thought, you guys. I'm thinking that what I'll do is, to get to the Queen Mary 2, what I'm instead going to do is take a plane from Portland down to Southern California and spend a few days on the original Queen Mary, and then Chris and I will go to LAX and take a plane to New York to catch the Queen Mary 2. And that is more expensive, but it'll allow me to see the original Queen Mary again. And so I can lump it in with the whole expense of the trip. But yeah, that's the plans for the UK trip. So hopefully that will go well, because it's been so difficult to save up the money. It really has. A trickle of money coming in. Talk about once in a lifetime, you know. Alright, so Cunard says, can you spend a little free time before your trip doing both play and research of New Orleans? Wait. Before your trip doing both play and research of New Orleans, watching an old video game, Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Fathers, its whole backstory is voodoo. I don't know about that. I really don't have that kind of time on my hands. I mean, every day of the week for me is completely filled with things I have to do. It's ridiculous. I never get, like, a break. Like, my friends have been asking me for weeks. They're like, hey, let's play a video game together. And I'm like, I don't have the time, you know? So, yeah. I wish, but I don't have that kind of time on my hands. Every day is filled with things for me to do. Dino says, walking in New Orleans is usually very hot and humid. Wear light clothing and keep water close. We certainly will. And, you know, we're not going during summer, so it should be cooler at the time that we're going. So it should be better. Dino says, if you go near the waterfront, look for the American Queen paddle wheel cruise boat. Always interesting to see it. Well, we will, but we're going to be seeing the real one, which is the Natchez. We're going to be actually riding on the Natchez, which is the only real steam paddle boat on that whole river. The others are fake. They have, like, propellers under the water, and they're, you know, diesel electric, and, you know, they're not real. They're like just diesel-powered modern boats. But the steamboat Natchez actually runs on steam, so So we'll definitely be riding on that one. Let's see. Oh, see you later, Sarah. Jeffrey says, you could do a fundraiser where if people want to donate, you can send a postcard from your trip. That would be fun. That would be kind of fun, actually. I'll have to think about that. I didn't think about that before. I'm like, huh. I could, like, write a little message or something and then sign it and... Yeah. I'll have to think about that. Yeah, the logistics of it. Because I'd have to bring back a bunch of them and... Or I could mail it to them or while I'm there. Yeah. Why bring it back? Why not just mail it while I'm there? Yeah, I'll definitely think about the logistics of it and figure out what I can do. Because that would be kind of cool to do a fundraiser for that. Because, believe it or not, I'm still saving up for the New Orleans trip, even though I've already got stuff booked. Like, I've got the plane booked, I've got the hotel booked, both of them non-refundable, and stuff. And so I'm like, I've still got things I need to pay for, and so I'm like, oh boy, I'm probably going to have to, like, use, like, a credit card or something, or get a loan from somebody I know or something, because, like, I have, like, a bunch of stuff already booked, but then, like, I still need more money for food. So when we get there, we're going to need to eat, and I'm like, oh, crud, how am I going to do that? So, yeah, I'll consider doing that. Kaiser Wilhelm says, hopefully the lifeboats get fixed, or at least replaced. Today a lot of them look bad. They are nowhere near as good as they once were. Well, yeah, the lifeboats look terrible considering they're not on the ship anymore. There's only 2 on the ship, and one of them, and on the dock, the rest, well, there's 8 more in storage, but they're completely out of sight, and then the rest are gone. They were destroyed. Mark Bram says, take a friend with you that could be an extra pair of eyes for protection. Oh, definitely. When we go to New Orleans, we'll be with a huge group. Like I said, you know, my dad's paying for his own side of the trip. I got my friend Chris, who's paying for his side of the trip. I got Shiloh and his mother. They're paying for their side of the trip. So it'll be 5 of us in New Orleans. And then going to the UK, it'll be me and Chris. We want another person to come with us, but nobody has that kind of time and money on their hands, which is understandable because neither do I. But yeah, so, you know, if there is a third person that wants to come with us to New Orleans, somebody that we know and we trust and we know that they're going to behave correctly, because, you know, one thing me and Chris talk about is, like, yeah, we know lots of people who might want to go with us. But the thing is that we have a strict schedule we're going to stick to, you know. We have to be able to wake up early every single day to go places and get there on time and meet our schedules. But some people we know that might go with us might not wake up early in the mornings. They might insist on waking up late, and, you know, who knows, they might want to go party or something. Like, I don't blame people if they join us and go to New Orleans and they're like, oh, I want to party because that's where you party. But the thing is, we're not going to be doing that. You know, we're going to be waking up early in the mornings, and we're going to be going out and doing stuff and making the most out of our time. So, you know, we can't have someone who's coming with us who's going to be, you know, hungover from the night before, you know, and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and it just doesn't fit with our schedule, you know. So, but, you know, I think for the New Orleans trip, the people we have going are going to be good to go. Like, because pretty much none of us drink, none of us party, none, you know, anything like that, you know. So, that's about it. Yeah. Bristol, yes. Bristol is the city I was talking about in England that that has the SS Great Britain and that really large bridge made by Isambard Kingdom Brunel. I'm like forgetting everything so easy. Let's see. Mr. Golden V says Paris looks like a nightmare to drive in. I'm sure it is, but when we get to Paris, we're not going to be renting any cars or anything like that. We're gonna get around using public transit and hope to God we don't get, beaten up and mugged. So, Kaiser Wilhelm says, pretty sure Lusitania and Mauritania are named after Roman provinces. They sure are. They are named after Roman provinces. K4 Arne says, the ferry is cheaper for sure. I think I paid 150 euros to go by train. It's funny, to get into France, we wanted to take the train because, well, my friend and I, we love trains. But yeah, if it's significantly more expensive to go by train, we may have to consider going by ferry. So, Kat says, New Orleans sounds like a cool place to film some spooky Halloween specials. Yes, definitely will. So when we have our private tour guide, what we're going to do is we're going to ask them to also give us some ghost stories and stuff so I can make videos about that. So it'll be Halloween stuff, it'll be stuff I can post during Halloween seasons and things like that. So, get people interested because, people like to watch some spooky history during Halloween. Yeah, so we'll definitely be doing that. HMS Potato says, hey Alex, been a while, hope you've been well. I have, thank you so much for asking. Yeah. Kaiser Wilhelm says, do you think the Normandy would be around if it hadn't been sunk by fire? Would it be a hotel? Hard to say because the Queen Mary being turned into a hotel, that's not normal. It's extremely abnormal for a ship. Did you know did you know that before the RMS Queen Mary was turned into a hotel, that there were no other large ocean liner hotels in existence? There were none. There weren't even large ocean liner museums in existence back then. So Queen Mary was the first in the whole world to become an ocean liner hotel and museum. So SS Normandy still being around, I don't think so. And Normandy probably would have retired earlier than Queen Mary. 40 years is the golden number of when a company intends to retire a ship in general. So Queen Mary probably would have been retired in 1976 if everything went well, which we know it definitely wouldn't have. No matter how you roll the dice, Queen Mary would have had to, to be retired earlier than 1976. But Normandy probably definitely would have, because Normandy was much more expensive to operate. Much more expensive to operate. I don't see Normandy surviving into the mid-1960s at all. I see the Normandy maybe making it through to the late 50s. And then having to retire very early because it's just too darn expensive to keep running. But yeah, and then as to whether someone would save it as a hotel, that's really hard to say because back then nobody did that. It just wasn't something you did, and even in the 1950s, ocean liners were a dime a dozen and they were becoming very unpopular. So nobody could fathom the idea of turning them into a hotel. Sure, Olympic, people wanted to turn that into a hotel when Olympic retired. But that was just a very unusual idea for the time. It just seemed out there. Everybody was like, why would you turn this aging ship into a hotel when it's going to be replaced by a much better hotel that will actually continue to sail the oceans into the future, you know. So it's just a very, in terms of like rarity, it's a very odd thing for a ship to become a hotel. But it's much more common now because these older ocean liners, people are starting to see the value in them. But yeah, as to whether Normandy would still be around, I have my doubts. I don't think Normandy would have survived. I mean, not because I just, you know, have a bias against Normandy, but you know, there was just a lot of mitigating factors. You know, Queen Mary becoming a hotel and museum, that wasn't just random. They didn't just go, that one, we'll pick that one to save. It didn't go like that. Queen Mary was the most famous ship in the world in 1967 when she retired. Sure, there was Titanic. Everybody knew what Titanic was, but nobody glorified Titanic the way we do today. Back then, Titanic was just the ship that sank tragically. But Queen Mary was the ship that everybody loved. Queen Mary was the Queen of the Seas. You know, even though they call SS United States Queen of the Seas, Queen Mary was the original Queen of the Seas. People always call her that. And Queen Mary as well, you know, she fought, you know, World War II. She was a troop ship, you know. She became like, people considered her like a veteran, you know. And so Normandy probably would have served troop ship duty, but it's hard to say whether she would have been involved in the same things. I mean, Queen Mary, you know, practically decided the fate of the first battle at El Alamein. That's a huge, significant thing. Queen Mary was in Operation Bolero, you know, and stuff like that. Like, Queen Mary was significant to the war effort. So she just garnered a huge name for herself, and then as well as the fact that she was the preferred ocean liner even into the late 1950s. People preferred sailing on Queen Mary over other ships. I mean, you know, there's tales of certain famous celebrities that loved Queen Mary, and then they sailed on SS United States and didn't like their experience, and they went back and continued sailing on Queen Mary, you know. So, you know, she was just the beloved ship, so. Oh, thank you so much, K4RNA. And Dino. Oh my gosh, thank you guys. That's so nice of you. Holy moly. Five Caps Film says, have you ever seen the Painted Ladies in San Francisco? Have I ever? Yes, because growing up, San Francisco was like my second home. You know, I lived in Southern California growing up, but I loved San Francisco. It was just this beautiful city to me. And so, yeah, I know San Francisco, all the streets like the back of my hand. I know it so well. And, yeah, I've been past the Painted Ladies many times. I've sat in the park across the street from the Painted Ladies. Yeah, I know a lot about San Francisco. In fact, I plan to make more history videos about San Francisco. But it seems that each time I make a video about San Francisco, it just doesn't garner the views. People just don't watch it. So I don't know. I think, you know, I think what I noticed is people are more inclined to watch a video if the video thumbnail shows like a disaster. That's really the only thing that gets people to click on the video. It doesn't matter how well I write the narration, how well the research is done. The majority of people will only watch if there's like some kind of destruction or disaster happening on the thumbnail. So, Dino DeSantis says, hope you find beignets in Café du Monde. Yes, we're definitely going to have beignets in Café du Monde because it's tradition. You if you go to New Orleans, you should have beignets at Café du Monde. But, however, being a pastry chef myself, I do know that Café du Monde's beignets are not the best in New Orleans. There are many restaurants that have better beignets than Café du Monde. So even though we will be going to Café du Monde, we're actually going to be having beignets at multiple restaurants throughout the week. I told everybody, I'm like, I found enough places that sell really good beignets that we could have beignets once every single day that we're there. So literally everywhere we go, there's a place that sells some really fancy beignets and some really good stuff. So we'll definitely be having beignets every day of the week that we're there. Um, sorry, I'm fidgeting so much. It's because this I'm sitting on. In order for me to fit in the frame of this camera, I have to sit on this like tiny little stool meant for like helping you put on shoes and stuff when you go outside. And it's funny because I went to Guitar Center when I was with my friends a couple weeks ago, and they were like, "Oh, you should buy like a drummer's stool because it's very comfortable." And I was like, "Okay." And I looked and I asked the guy, I'm like, "How much does it cost?" He's like, $250. I'm like, I do not have $250. I'm like, I cannot buy this thing. So I didn't end up buying the drummer's stool, but man, I wish I did because I could really use something more comfortable to sit on. This is the most uncomfortable thing ever. Alright, so oh, Kevin's leaving. See you later, Kevin. Kev's Film says, have you ever heard of Caltrain? Caltrain? No, I haven't. K4NA says, Alex does not have to do this. I appreciate that he does. What, a live stream? Well, I don't have to, but I do like doing live streams. Five Caps Film says, when you go to New Orleans, you should see the Garden District. Yes, that's one of the places we plan to go. We're going to take the streetcar along St. Charles Avenue to get to the Garden District, and we're going to even have breakfast there at, like, there's a really cool little donut shop that has really fancy donuts. So we're going to have breakfast there, then walk around the Garden District for a couple hours, and then head back. So yeah, we definitely plan to visit the Garden District. Dino DeSantis says, you could do a video on beignets sampling multiple places in New Orleans. Yeah, I could definitely do that, because I'll have the footage to cover it. So, yeah, I could definitely do that. I smell smoke. I really hope that's not coming from my apartment. We'll know soon enough if my smoke detectors go off. Wild Smiley says, I miss San Francisco. Been there once, 25 years ago. Have been dying to go back. The city is struggling now with crime, but I hope she can recover. Well, yes, I actually read that in the last few years, crime has dropped dramatically. In fact, crime in New Orleans is less than crime here in Portland, Oregon, which says a lot because crime in Portland, Oregon was bad, but it wasn't originally as bad as New Orleans. So crime in New Orleans has definitely gotten better. I looked at it, the statistics, and it's amazing how much it's improved because the government there has really stepped up their game with protecting the city. I'm really concerned about that smoke smell, but I don't know what it is. And I can't just leave the live stream or else everybody's going to run away. Hey Alex, sorry for the repetition, but when you go to New Orleans, you can do a video about the effects of Hurricane Katrina. I don't know that I can. I did think about it. But, well, first of all, my channel doesn't really cover modern history. It covers history from before World War II, you know, and I generally cover history going as far back as 300 years and then up until World War II. But I don't cover modern history on my channel. It's not something that people come here to see. But even then, we won't be going to enough places in New Orleans for me to create a video that accurately depicts what happened during Katrina, because we're really going to 3 places in New Orleans, essentially. We're going to be in the French Quarter, the Garden District, and the Plantations. None of those places were really affected by Hurricane Katrina, so I can't really make a video about it. So, you know, and we're we'll have a car rented for a day to help us get around to the plantations and to maybe one or two other places, but we won't be able to get to places like the Ninth Ward where there was like the worst of the damage and stuff like that. So but yeah, like I said, this channel doesn't really cover modern history. It covers history from prior to World War II. Dino says, New Orleans is great for nightlife, but always be safe. Well, we're not really much of nightlife people anyway, so we're going to be going to our hotel rooms, you know, as soon as the sun goes down, we'll be at our hotel, so we're not much for nightlife people. We might go out once to get, like, you know, like a cocktail or something. Like, me and my dad, really. Chris doesn't drink at all, and neither does Shiloh and his mom, so, you know, but my dad and I, we might go out, get a cocktail, but that's just one night of the week, so we're not really nightlife people. HMS Potato says, I went to New Orleans about 4 years ago for a few days. It was nice, but a lot as it was just, wait, what? New Orleans about 4 years ago for a few days. It was nice, but a lot as it was just after Mardi Gras. Okay. I have difficulty understanding that. Who is HMS Potato? I don't remember your username. But you're obviously one of my moderators, so I don't remember who you are. K4RNA says, hope your dad is doing good. Loved his cooking videos, but I understand the cost. Yeah. It was a big... I tried to tell him, you know, because he wanted to start his own channel. He saw how well my channel was doing. But I told him, I'm like, it's not easy, Dad. Like, I know I make it look easy, but it's not easy, you know. It takes up every hour of your day to make these videos. And any free time you get is making the next video, you know. And he got a taste for it finally when he had to make his own videos for YouTube. The thing was I would film it for him. So I would film him cooking. And even then I told him, I said, one day you're going to have to film yourself, because all this time I'm using filming you cooking is time I could be using working on my channel, you know. So I told him, I was like, eventually you have to do this yourself. And, you know, having to figure out how to film the whole thing and then how to edit all of it and do all of that for the first time. He's never had to do that kind of stuff before. It was overwhelming, and it's very demanding work, you know. So I know making YouTube videos look simple. There are some people that literally just turn on their phone camera and start talking, but what I do and what most YouTubers do is not easy. It takes a lot of work. A lot of work. Jeffrey Charles says, what are your thoughts on Disney taking out Rivers of America and Magic Kingdom? I think it's a dumb idea. I think it's awful. I think that they're just too lazy to expand the park and build their new lands elsewhere. But even then, there's just certain things that just don't belong in the Magic Kingdom, and it's just, I don't... But the other thing, too, is I don't really care anymore. You know, like, I'm not a Disney fan anymore. I lost my love for Disney in 2019, you know, because I had renewed my annual pass, and I remember after renewing my annual pass and them charging a lot more money than they used to, I asked myself, I said, what am I doing? I'm like, this isn't the park that I grew up with anymore. Like, this isn't even the company it's not even the same company it was when I was a kid. You know, like, I was not enjoying myself. It was costing a ton of money. They were charging premiums for everything. And this was before the pandemic, when they really ramped up charging premiums for everybody. And I just remember thinking, like, this isn't the same park I used to love. It's not even the same park it was when I first started working for Disney in 2009. You know, it just didn't feel the same. It felt very corporate and very money grubbing. It didn't have the love that it had even when I worked there. So, and I remember when it changed. 2012, that's when it changed. I was still working for Disney in 2012, and the way it felt to work at the company completely changed that year, because the resort, Disneyland Resort, became way more popular than ever because of Cars Land and the redo of California Adventure and all that. Everything had to become more corporate to keep up with the demand. And it just, the love and everything that was in it just changed. And even the cast members changed. And I was telling Chris the other day, I said, we used to have old folks working at Disneyland. Old folks. Because, you know, they were the veterans, as we called them. Many of them were from Walt's era. They were there when Walt Disney worked there, and they knew how to do their jobs, and they would pass down their, what we called, tribal knowledge of how to be a cast member, what is expected out of your service, you know. And it felt like a big family when I first started there. And then after 2012, everything got so busy. All those old folks that used to work there, they were too old and tired to keep up with the extreme busyness of the resort after that. And they all slowly retired one by one. And just a couple of years later, when I had finally left the company in 2016, there was none of those old veteran cast members there anymore. They all left. They were gone. And the people that replaced them was this high turnover rate of young kids who didn't know or didn't care about that tribal knowledge we had, you know. I remember I was a trainer, and I would try to train the cast members that worked with me. I would tell them, okay, you know, the old folks, the veteran cast members, they always said, you know, do this with a smile. When you open a door, smile first before you walk out. You know, little things like that. I know it's little things like that. Sounds annoying. Why would you open a door with a smile? But the reason why is because Walt knew that if a guest saw a cast member just open a door and walk out into the public area with this, you know, this grouchy face or whatever, it would look like what they're doing backstage is not fun for them. Right? So we used to be taught that when you opened a door, you opened it with a smile to look like you are enjoying your job, even if you aren't. And that's tribal knowledge that was passed down from Walt's era all the way till when I worked there. But then after all those old folks retired and there was a high turnover rate for cast members, people would come in for their jobs and instead of staying for the long term, because we used to get people that they would hire in and they were there to get a full-time job and they would stay forever. Not anymore. The company didn't want it that way. They like doing part-time jobs and then having people quit and new people come in. It's just cheaper for them because they don't have to pay them raises, right? So, yeah, so I would tell these people I was training, you know, when you open a door, smile as you do it. And they were like, but that's dumb. Why would I do that? And I'm like, and I'd explain it to them, and they're like, yeah, but it's not necessary. And I'm like, but it helps with the experience. When the guests see you walk out from the backstage area, they'll see you smiling and they'll know that you enjoy what you do. And they're like, yeah, but they would just argue with me. They're like, yeah, but it's not necessary. It's weird. And I'm like, all right, fine, you know. And so it's just like, it was sad. It's just a complete change. And nobody cared. And so, you know, now today, a lot of the newer cast members, there's still a lot of cast members from when I worked there, that still work there, but a lot of the newer cast members, they know that they're just there for a year and that they're just going to find a better job. So they don't even bother. They just, when they find a better job, they just up and quit and leave. And that's not how it used to be. It used to be that people who applied for work at Disney, yeah, sure, there were the kids that worked there for college and then they would leave. But a huge majority of people that worked at Disney years ago would do it because they planned to move up in the company. They wanted to stay there for their life and move up. And it just isn't the case anymore. So, yeah, so as to this Cars Land thing and what I think they're going to do to Magic Kingdom's Rivers of America and demolishing it and building a car land there, it just, I don't feel anything anymore. Like, I know logically it's dumb and I don't like it, but in terms of emotion, I have no emotion towards it. My heart just says they can do whatever they want. I don't care. Because the like I said, the company and the parks that I grew up with as a kid no longer exist. It's not the same thing anymore. So, yeah. K4RNA says, to be very honest, I never liked Disney until I saw your videos. Been there hundreds of times. I just like history for anything. Your monorail video is good. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, you know, I like the history of Disneyland. You know, not the modern history, but the original history. You know, stuff dating back to Walt Disney's era. I like that stuff. You know, Walt Disney was a great guy. There's a whole bunch of false information out there about him. Oh, he was a misogynist. Oh, he was anti-Semitic, and oh, he was racist, and all that stuff. It's all false stuff, and a lot of it can be traced back to that picket line out in the 1940s out front of Walt's studio. You know, there were people there, and I can't name them by name because their ancestral family members today would be like, what? How dare you accuse my grandfather? But there were people who I could technically name by name who made up those things and then used just glimpsing anecdotal evidence to make their point and say, well, here's the proof. But in actuality, there was a much bigger reasoning behind it, you know. And a lot of the stuff that is often used as proof to prove Walt's prejudices is stuff that, like, it can't be excused, but it can be explained by the era and the times that people lived in. But to make long story short, if you start looking at the way Disney cartoons and things were produced through the 1950s and the 1960s, you can see that there is a change. As the civil rights movement became more prominent, people like Walt Disney, their way of doing things would change. They understood things about society. And so they changed with the times. That's why you might see something from the 1930s, like a stereotype that was animated into one of Walt's cartoons, but then in the 1960s, that stereotype is no longer used. Is because through the decades, Walt Disney learned from those things and understood things about society and how society was changing, and he changed with the times. I think the only thing that remained, even until Walt died, was probably the occasional stereotype about Native Americans. But as any Native American would tell you, that the Native American stereotypes is probably one of the last racial stereotypes that remained in mainstream media even until the early 2000s. You know, so, you know, it took decades after Walt died for that to become considered, unacceptable, you know. So, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, I can prove all these things about why Walt was not anti-Semitic. You know, did you know Walt Disney was given the Man of the Year Achievement Award by the B'nai B'rith? I hope I pronounced that correctly. I don't know how to pronounce Hebrew words, but he was given Man of the Year awards by the B'nai B'rith twice, once in 1955 and once in 1958. So Jewish communities themselves were giving Walt Man of the Year achievement awards because, and they don't give those to people who are anti-Semitic. If they thought he was anti-Semitic, they wouldn't have given it to him. You know, and he was a lifelong donor to the Yeshiva College. He was also, constantly donating to Jewish causes and hospitals. There was a hospital in New York that was for elderly Jews, and he would donate to that. You know, just all kinds of stuff. He wasn't this horrible, prejudiced person that, the world makes him out to be. And, he was a flawed person, he had his flaws. And there were things about himself that he changed over the years, and he improved himself over the years. And I think we all have, So, yeah. Tyler Walker says, have you considered a PayPal account for collecting donations? I already have something similar to it. So, well, first of all, there's a lot of ways. If people and let me tell you, for those who hate me, who are watching, I'm not asking anybody to donate money to me. I never do. I never say, please give me money. I never do that. But there are people who want to donate to my channel just because they enjoy the content. They want to see it continue. So for those people who just love the content and just want to contribute to it, if that is a choice you want to make, there are ways you can do it. Some people have put a super thanks in the chat of this live stream. That's one of the ways you can thank me, is you can super thanks my videos by giving a donation, and that goes on to my YouTube channel. So you can do it for the comment sections of videos, and you can do it for the live chat in the live streams. I also have the channel membership services. The channel memberships, you'll see a little join button right underneath the video. It's a little join button, and that means that you can join the channel as a paying channel member, and there's 3 different tiers, and you get certain perks for the tiers. But I will admit that I'm not that active on it because of the fact that I'm just always so busy making regular content for the channel itself, for the free viewers. I'm constantly busy with that, so I don't have as much time to contribute to the membership services. But those membership services are there for people who just like to have an ongoing payment thing going on. There's some people who have joined this live stream who are members of my channel, and they know that I don't create new members-only content. They're just there because they want to support me every month. And my God, those people are amazing. So thank you so much to those people. But there's that. And then for people who like to make larger contributions of their own standing at their own time, there's also Venmo. I'm on Venmo at Alex A. Historian. So yeah, those are the ways, and I'm pretty sure all that is in the description below, so you can see all that. And I even have a GoFundMe for the UK trip, and that's also in the description below. There's a link to that, and you can just donate directly to the UK trip that way. But yeah, so it's a lot. But yeah, I never ask people for money. It's if they're planning to contribute anyway, then those are the ways that they can do it. So, yeah. Wild Smiley says, I haven't visited Disney parks since I was 11 years old. It was Magic Kingdom and Epcot Center. I mean, they gutted Journey into Imagination, which I loved as a kid, so I don't know if I'll return. Yeah, Epcot, I heard, has taken a huge downturn over the last couple of years. I mean, I visited Epcot in 2006, and even then I was like, this isn't what I was thinking it was, you know? It advertised two lands, Future World and World Showcase. World Showcase matched my expectations. Future World did not match my expectations. Future World was very outdated and very old looking. It looked 1980s. It did not look futuristic. So I remember even in 2006, I was like, I don't like Epcot. I didn't see what people liked about it. I was like, this is not what I was hoping it would be. Chris says, never really cared about Walt Disney stuff because I grew up in Marceline. A lot of people in Marceline liked to overuse Disney's connections with the town. Yeah, that's true. Kaiser Wilhelm says, everyone has flaws, but it also depends on how big you are. If you are very prominent in society and someone sees a flaw, they will pick to point it out. Yeah, that's the other thing. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why Walt Disney is so, hated, is because any flaw that he has is a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times blown out of proportion. Any celebrity that makes a mistake, they do one little thing, it doesn't matter how big it is, the people will always make it worse than it really is. Although Walt Disney does have some things that he definitely did need to change. Like I said, there really were stereotypes in use in his earliest cartoons for the sake of garnering a laugh. But it's not that he was the only person doing it. It was just common to do that. It's the same way when I was in high school, the most common things that all the students were doing was making all kinds of racial jokes and stuff like that. That was just something everybody did back then. But I bet none of those people do that today. Not today. Because it's now just considered so very inappropriate. I mean, it was already inappropriate back then, but it was one of those things that, even the person of the race that's being made fun of in the joke can laugh it off, I had Asian friends that often told racist Asian jokes and things like that, but today people wouldn't really do that. And so it's the same thing for the 1930s. There were often stereotypes used in cartoons and comedy to add a punch to the punchline. And it didn't mean that you hated that race or that religion. It just meant that you were using it for laughs. And today we wouldn't do that because it's not funny, So it's very easy to look into something that happened in the past using today's, lenses. But it doesn't compute. It's not the same thing, So, yeah. It was just a different time back then. And those people and society itself learned, which is why today society is different. So obviously there was positive changes. But yes, so Walt Disney did things that are not excusable, but they are explainable. And it didn't mean that he hated certain races or hated certain religions. He often assisted and donated to the very same groups of people that people claim he hated. He just wasn't like that. One of Walt's animators, the first black animator at the Disney studio, Floyd Norman, was hired by Walt Disney himself. And it wasn't, to check off any kind of, we got a black guy kind of thing. It was just Floyd signed up for the job. In fact, Floyd said the same thing. They asked him, they said, Floyd, why didn't Walt have more black people working as animators in his studio? Floyd said he would have hired them if they applied for the job. Floyd said, once again, Floyd, I think he's passed away, but Floyd was a black man, and he said, it was not common for black men to go to animation school because they knew that the end result was that most studios would not hire them. So they didn't even bother going to animation school. And it wasn't really animation wasn't really considered a job anyway, So he said, but if there were more of them, Walt would have hired them. You know, he said about Walt Disney that if you were a good person, he liked you. It's as simple as that. You know, Walt never treated him any different in the studio. In fact, Walt would often, you know, stop by and joke around with him and, you know, chew the fat just like any other employee at the company, you know, and he was, you know, insisted that everybody be treated equally, you know. Walt had a bad temper, he yelled at everybody. He didn't yell at Floyd Norman any different, so, you know, so Walt Disney had his flaws. He was a human being, you know, but he wasn't a saint and he wasn't a devil. He was just a human being, and he was a good human being. He was a very good human being. So, yep, yeah, he donated to the Hebrew Orphan Asylum. Yep, and the Yeshiva College, Jewish Home for the Aged. And yeah, Walt Disney was voted Man of the Year, 1955, B'nai B'rith. Yeah, here's the other thing too. So Walt Disney was technically a conservative man, but he wasn't locked into his conservativeness. He was a very open-minded person just on his own. And Bob Gurr was one of Walt Disney's Imagineers, hired by Walt Disney himself, and Electroluxia is explaining this, and this I can confer with. Bob Gurr, a gay man, Walt Disney employed and fully supported, designed the Matterhorn, monorail, Autopia, and all transportation for Disneyland 1955. Walt was not a bigot. That is correct. You know, there was even a case in the early 1950s, I want to say. Police came to Walt Disney Studio to arrest a gay man for doing gay acts. And I can't say specifically what they are because YouTube would completely demolish this video. But Walt Disney convinced the police to turn away. Walt talked to them and he said, look, just turn a blind eye and go the other way. And they did. They did. I think that was amazing. Walt Disney he didn't go out there and was like, I love gay people. He wasn't like that. He just, like Floyd Norman said, if you were a good person, he liked you. That was Walt Disney, you know. So, yeah. But yeah, he certainly wasn't a bigot like he's often portrayed. I've wanted for a long time to make a video about that, but I don't really know how society in general will react to that, you know. Even if you show people proof of something, if it's locked in their head, they don't want to believe the opposite. You know what I mean? So it's hard. It's difficult, you know. And what makes it worse is that the Disney company never defends Walt Disney. They have the facts in their hands about who he was. They have full access to any proof that could disprove, these accusations. But they don't use it. They don't care. They don't care at all. Which is what makes it so funny that they're going to make this new show on Main Street USA called Walt Disney Dreamer or something like that. And it's going to be the first show, the first thing in a Disney park to ever have Walt Disney as an animatronic. Something which Walt Disney himself told Blaine Gibson. Blaine Gibson was one of the sculptors for the Disney Imagineering studio. And Walt told Blaine, he's like, I never want to be a statue or to be an animatronic. He says, I don't hold myself up to the same standard or the same regard as Abraham Lincoln and all of that. He says, I'm not that great. And so he never wanted to be an animatronic. But here Disney is, they're like, we're going to build a show and make Walt an animatronic in the show. And you got all these Disney fans who are like, yay, finally we get to see Walt Disney again. And what they don't understand is they're not going to see Walt Disney again. That's an animatronic. It's not him. You know, and he didn't want to be an animatronic. And they go, oh, but, you know, Disney wants to do something that will celebrate him. And I go, well, where were they when everybody was making up all this stuff about Walt being racist and prejudiced and all that? Where was Disney to defend him? If they really cared about Walt Disney and really wanted to celebrate the man, why would they remove his opening day speech, a tradition that for many decades was done at Disneyland? They would play the recording of Walt's opening day speech of Disneyland on Disneyland's anniversary in Town Square. And in 2022, during the height of the Hate Walt Disney movement, Disney cut out his speech from that ceremony, which was a complete break from a decades-long tradition. Where was Disney when that happened? You know, they don't care about Walt Disney. What they care about is selling Walt Disney merchandise to all the Walt Disney fans. And, you know, I guarantee you, the exit of that new show will feature a gift shop with Walt Disney merchandise and Funko Pops with Walt Disney's face on them. You know, so that's the thing is like, you know, their intentions behind everything are just so disingenuous. Sorry, I went on a tirade, folks, but it makes me mad when people don't have integrity, you know? So, Five Caps Film says, hey Alex, can you speak a different language? If so, you can. I'm learning French, but I'm not very good at, like, I'm not good enough, I don't think, to say things correctly. So if I was to say I'm not good at speaking French, I'd say, je ne sais pas... Je ne sais pas le français. Yeah. Je ne sais pas de français. I think that means I'm not good at speaking French. I don't know for certain. You know, so I can do certain things, you know. I can say, où est la gare, which means where is the train station. I can say things like, let's see. I'm trying to think of the word for afternoon. See, I'm still learning. It's just really difficult. I know a bunch of these random words, and I'm still in the process of learning how you piece them together into sentences. But yeah, it's difficult. K4RNA says, don't worry everyone, I can barely speak English. It's difficult to speak a different language. Oh my gosh. But I've always wanted to learn French, and like I'm such a boomer when it comes to technology. Like I don't know anything about what's available to people. And my friend was like, "Hey, you should try Duolingo. It's like a free app." And I was like, "It's free and I can learn how to speak French?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "It's got its flaws." He's like, "But it's you know, you can get away with speaking enough French that, you know, from this free app." So I signed up for Duolingo, and now I learn French, and it's really fun, actually. I really like it, and I can speak a lot more French than I did, you know, 100 days ago. So I'm on my 140th day, consecutive day of learning French. So I've been learning French for 140 days so far, and you know, Duolingo isn't perfect, but I certainly know a lot more French than I used to. So, Uh, oh gosh. See, I want to like put together a sentence like I'm eating this biscuit, but I don't know the French word for biscuit. So yeah, it's difficult. Um, Stephen Hemingway says, "It's good to see you stand up for Walt in the current climate and the way some of his films have been attacked." Yeah, I mean, it's sad because like I said, he wasn't a saint and he wasn't a devil. He was just a good man. He was a good man. He had flaws, but he was a good man. And it's just sad to see like a good man completely ripped down by a society that never knew him, that doesn't have any solid evidence behind what they say. They see something that upsets them, and they use that as their proof for all the reasons why he's bad. Like I said, he's got things that he certainly could atone for, but he was a person of his time. But it didn't mean that he hated people, So... Five Caps Films, that is a crazy story. Oh, K4RNA is talking about the movie Airplane, where they have a joke where the flight attendant can speak jive. She does this whole bit where she's talking to these two black men in, like, jive talk. Oh my gosh. Wild Smiling says, "I can speak a good number of words in Japanese, but I can't construct sentences." Same here, Before I ever wanted to learn French, I wanted to learn Japanese, and I didn't know at the time that Japanese was one of the hardest languages to learn. And so I was like buying all these workbooks and things for learning Japanese, and I was having so much trouble, and I never got through it. I could never speak Japanese. But I know now today the only thing I remember are like really random words like wakarimasen and stuff like that, like really random stuff. But yeah. But yeah, now I know more French than I know Japanese, that's for sure. And it's funny because when I tell people like, "Oh, I'm learning French," they go, "Speak French." And I'm like, I can't formulate sentences. I know I'm learning vocabulary, but I'm not learning how to put the vocabulary together as much. I'm still, je mange l'orange, which means I'm eating an orange. That's like things I can say, I can ask for where things are, or I recently learned how to ask for how much something is, but now I can't remember how to ask for a price in French. Yeah. Like if you're going to say like, "Are you taking a taxi?" you would say "Tu vas au taxi." So that's like another sentence you could say. So as you can see, it takes me a while to put the sentences together in my head. But I'm very like proud of myself for even learning French, because I've always wanted to learn a second language, and I've just been terrible at picking up languages. So I'm proud of myself that I'm even learning how to do that. But I'm also doing it because eventually when I do go on my UK trip and I go to France, as part of the trip, I want to be able to at least say a few things in French, so that way I don't look like a complete idiot. But Tyler Jones says, "Does the statue of Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse still stand?" Yes. In practically every Disney castle park, there is a statue of Walt and Mickey Mouse. Walt told Blaine Gibson, his Imagineering sculptor, that he never wanted to be a statue. But in 1982, the Disney company wanted to make a statue of Walt Disney holding Mickey Mouse's hand. And Blaine Gibson, who they asked to make the statue, reminded them Walt Disney didn't want to be a statue, but they managed to talk him through it and convince him why Walt should have a statue in Disneyland, and eventually Blaine Gibson agreed with their point of view, and he himself sculpted the now famous Partners statue, which sits at the center hub of every castle park, every Disney castle park, including a statue of him. The Partner statue was replicated for the Disney studio. But it was difficult to convince the Disney family and the original Imagineers that there should be a Walt Disney animatronic in the park. That was difficult. Conrad. I remember some episodes of Leave It to Beaver, but I don't remember all of it. Mostly, my family watched I Love Lucy. Steven says, RE language, are you learning English too? Yeah, that's funny. I was just telling my friend Shiloh yesterday that, oh shoot, I gotta end the live stream soon because I'm expecting a phone call in like 3 minutes. Anyway, folks, I do have to get going because I am expecting a phone call any minute now, and I gotta take the phone call. Anyway, folks, but thank you so much for watching. Hopefully we can do this again next week if weather permits. But otherwise, yeah, watch my latest video, Queen Mary, the unbeatable survivor. And yeah, see you all later. Bye-bye, everyone.